At the beginning of 2021, leaks of CallMeCarson sexting a 17-year-old girl emerged on the internet. Though the messages were more than a year old, it was just recently that the public had heard about it. To make this clear, Carson was 19 at the time, so the problem wasn't the age difference, but the power dynamic between the two and the possession of underage nudes. So, what happened? Just to give a basic rundown, Carson was accused of grooming someone online, sending nudes to an underage girl, and receiving from her. DMs came out of him using his power to get sexual favors from her, and was just overall a shitty person who used the imbalance of influence to get what he wanted. I don't believe he is a pedophile, since I personally have friends who are 17 and 19 respectively, and are in a relationship. However, it does become illegal when you receive explicit content from a minor, or send to a minor, which is why his behavior is unlawful as it is, mentioned in Slimicles Tweet. The age of consent does not equal the age of sending explicit content to others. Just because 17 is over the age of consent in Indiana, where the victim lived, doesn't mean that it's automatically okay to receive nudes from a minor. She was still a minor, which is illegal, regardless of consent laws. As I like to say, nothing good comes out of being horny. When this came out, I was shocked and saddened by this. Carson was one of my favorite content creators, and my friends and I loved watching his videos. The people who are exposing him aren't just random people who are out to get him. They are his friends, who care about him deeply. This fact makes the evidence pretty damning, and there's not much Carson can do to defend himself if even his best friends are calling out his behavior. If there was no evidence, then you'd think they'd all be defending him, right? It's very hard to just stay neutral in this situation when his very own past friends are coming out with evidence and testimonies about what he has done. Even Jschlatt, who is not normally a serious person, talked about these allegations and gave insight on how Carson exposed himself to his friends.
Around late February, early March, Carson told the Lunch Club guys, as well as a bunch of close friends of his at the time, that he had been sexting his fans. He explained that he had exchanged photos with the 17-year-old while he was 19, and that he was done with it. He hadn't done it in months. He was ashamed of what he had done, and all that stuff. And it was to the point that we genuinely thought his life could be in danger. And I felt like I needed to be there for him, and that's why I stuck with him. We talked him into seeing a therapist. We helped him form a better relationship with social media. But so much time spent with the guy just trying to be good friends for him, and trying to do what we thought was the right thing to do. And in my discussions with them, I heard some things that suggested that Carson wasn't improving in the areas that he should have been. And he was showing signs of continuing some of his inappropriate behavior. And apparently this was happening while I was spending all this time trying to help him. And while he was saying that he was working on himself and that he was changing and that he hates the person he used to be. He pursued. Looking back now, almost every step of the way, Carson tried to downplay what had actually happened. I can no longer say with any confidence that I believe Carson's behavior has ever stopped. When I came to this realization a few weeks ago, I'd cut ties with Carson.
When all of Carson's friends are cutting ties with him and saying that he admitted to sexting a 17-year-old girl, I don't understand how you can stay neutral in the situation. Slimicles took legal action. Connor, Jschlatt, Noah, and Travis spoke out about the situation and said that they were no longer in contact with Carson. Don't get me wrong though, I do believe Carson should respond to this situation, but I don't think it'll do much. From Jschlatt's testimony, he said that Carson downplayed what he had done and did not get better despite telling his friends that he was working on himself. There was a lot of pain in his voice, and he was genuinely hurt by Carson's lies. His video is what led me to believe that personally, this isn't something I can just stay neutral on. If Carson lied to his own friends, then imagine what he would do to his impressionable audience. I can't say his words would make much of a difference. What I hope will happen, at least, is that he'll make an apology to the victims, or will genuinely get help. I do not believe Carson is innocent. I would be pleasantly surprised, but right now the most neutral we can be is to admit what he did was wrong and be with the victims, and hope that they get the help that they need. Now, why does this reflect a bigger problem in the YouTube community? Carson struggled a lot with imposter syndrome and depression, which is not an excuse for his actions in any way, but a similar narrative that goes along with grooming. These men, who are predominantly out of the spotlight for their entire life, suddenly get an immense amount of fame, which often leads to an abuse of power. Suddenly millions of impressionable fans are at the tip of their finger. Obviously, not all creators are like this, but this kind of sudden fame and inability to mentally handle it is what drives certain content creators to manipulate their audience and get what they could not get before fame. Looking back on 2020, a big chunk of the Smash community were exposed as pedophiles, as well as the Twitter art community. I think we as people need to be careful about who we put on a pedestal and rethink what it means to be neutral. Don't get me wrong though, there is nothing inherently wrong with staying neutral in these situations. However, with this particular one, it's extremely hard to wait for more evidence when there are countless testimonies of his own friends saying he admitted to sexting a 17-year-old. Neutrality doesn't mean you have to blame the victim. All you need to do is be like, I'm sorry that happened, I really hope you get the help you need and grow as a person. That's literally it. It doesn't blame the victim at all, nor does it make you have to drastically choose the other side. Doing so allows actual victims to speak up without fear of harassment or being called a liar. These very few fake allegations make it harder for actual people to speak up against abuse. Also, it doesn't make it any better when victims are called a liar automatically and harassed by their fans. Reporting abuse is a terrifying thing to do sometimes, especially when the person they are accusing is in a position of power. It's also extremely hard to prove sometimes. Regardless if it is true or not, approach things with kindness and sympathy. Obviously, there are bad people who fake things just to get at them, but the Carson situation is not one of those situations, so I will not touch on that subject in particular. Offer your condolences and walk away without making a statement. That is all you need to do. I've seen a few people try to downplay the grooming aspect of the allegations by saying, oh, she's 17, she's old enough to make her own decisions, she can't be groomed. It's a really dumb argument because grooming can happen at any age, though it mainly affects children since they are the most vulnerable, but once you turn 17, 18, or 19, you're not automatically super mature and secure in yourself. Age does not define maturity. A 19-year-old can act like a 16-year-old and vice versa. Though it's not typically referred to as grooming when an adult is taken advantage of, it's still abuse and manipulation, and that is equally as serious as grooming. Regardless of certain things Carson did were not true, he still hurt and manipulated a lot of people who genuinely cared about him. This isn't some random person on Twitter accusing a creator of harassment, but these are people who cared and loved him, and that is why I believe he is guilty of doing those horrific things. You can choose to be neutral, but right now, I'd rather stand with the victims than no one at all. Carson's behavior is sick and wrong, and no one in the right mind should be defending him. The evidence isn't flimsy DMs that change depending on who has them. Carson literally admitted to sexting that girl to his friends and lied about getting better to them. I think that's a reflection of who he is and why I don't understand how you can stay neutral. However, if you decide to, at least send your condolences to the dozens of victims affected by Carson's inability to take people seriously, his manipulation, and abuse of power. To end this off, I want to offer my condolences to all the girls taken advantage of, the other silent people who he hurt, and all his friends who were lied to. It's a shame to see a person I watch frequently turn out to be a horrible person. But I hope all the victims get justice, and Carson not only gets the help he needs, but pay for the things he has done to the people who gave him everything. I believe that it is innocent until proven guilty, but I will never harass someone for coming out with allegations, because regardless of the truth, I know that they are hurting a lot inside and deserve to get the help or justice they need. My stance is that I cannot stay neutral about this. I don't believe Carson is a pedophile, but I do believe he manipulated and mistreated a lot of the people to get what he wanted, and I don't want to associate myself with that kind of behavior. If he did receive explicit content from a minor, I hope he gets those repercussions as well. But what matters most is that the victims receive love and support and are able to grow despite having a traumatic experience with a sad man with too much power. Despite everything, Carson still has a dedicated fan base. I'm not sure whether or not he will return, and frankly, I don't care. What matters is that every party involved gets the help and support they need. Thank you for watching. I just wanted to get my thoughts out on this, and I hope I was clear about the points that I made. I hope you all have a wonderful day.